Chief, I actually want to know why this matters to you. Like, there's so many things we could be doing, right? There's a lot of gifts you have. You're a smart guy. You're a hard worker, and if you apply those two things to something, a goal, yeah, you can do a lot of things. But why this? Why not something else?
I think when I first started coaching, and I mean, this story is one I've told all my clients previously, but when I was in the military, back in those days, in basic training, every soldier had to be able to do 7 pull-ups. No matter what job you're going to do, you know, you're going to be a chef, you're going to be a driver, didn't matter. You had to be able to do 7 pull-ups. Most guys can't do 1 pull-up. But if you're going into the military, a lot of these guys train up preparing themselves. And there was a guy that, you know, I knew that was going through basic training at the same time as me, who, overweight guy, had never been athletic. He was going into a specific role where he didn't really need to be physical later on, and he couldn't do 1 pull-up. So he was going to fail, like in 12 weeks' time when he was marching out. Well, he wouldn't march out, he'd fail basic training. So I worked with him, you know, outside of his physical training to help him achieve that goal. And we got there, he ended up doing 8 on his final assessment. And I think I loved to see in him what could be achieved, because the trainers that were there was like basically writing him off. You can't even do 1. There's no way you're going to be able to do 7 in like 12 weeks.
Right.
You know, come on, just do 1. Like, there was no science to it.
But you believed in him. And you
I
saw
knew it,
something.
and I believed in science that I'd already researched, and we put it into place, and it worked. And I loved it. And I loved the elation that I got out of watching him get up there, do those pull-ups, and achieve his goal.
Right.
And then, you know, a little bit later on in my military career, I started the boot camps and realised, you know, I was training other soldiers, and I was really loving seeing them achieve their goals, whether it be to apply for a specialist unit or whatever it might be. Then seeing it with civilians, the same thing. It's just a different goal. But primarily the same sort of motivations that were pushing them. So I just found I loved the understanding of what people can achieve, what they think is beyond them. But then also the next thing was that I just loved the science of it.
Yeah, right.
I'm obsessed with it.
Were you always obsessed with it? When did you first just get into it?
I think so. You know, at school I did, you know, physical education theory, and my father was an amazing sportsman and an amazing coach. Trained, like, you know, Australian cricketers, and my sister, again, he was an educator. My sister was is an educator. She was an amazing coach as well, an athlete. So I kind of went down that path fairly early, and wanting to understand the body and what it could actually achieve. And then I just became obsessed with learning, and you know, I think probably I was lucky enough at one stage, as I got a little bit older, to travel with them all around the world, learning from the best minds in our industry, and finding more and more science that was there, from unusual sort of circumstances. Like, you know, Olympic coaches make sense; they're at the top of their game. But then dealing with someone who was a former strongman, self-coached. You know, everyone's heard of battling ropes. Like, everyone's seen it. You know, the entire world's seen it. Very few people know that the guy who created it was a guy named John Brookfield, former world's strongest man. Basically created it because when he retired, couldn't go for a jog because he'd blown out all his joints carrying cars for 10 years. So he created this system out of nowhere, but there was nothing like it in the industry.
Right.
So I learnt from another one of my mentors. We're in Tennessee, training at a SWAT training facility. He goes, try this, you know, workout with me. I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, you know, ex-military, I thought we'd done everything with ropes. Who taught you this? He told me. We drove straight to North Carolina and spent 3 days in John's garage becoming master trainers, because to learn from someone who created something that is so unique, then to understand the science behind it as well, then I had to come home and then share that with other coaches or other clients.
Out of all the things you've experienced, all the practices and models that you've read and you've obviously trialed, what are some of the universal things you found about the science that you've learned about the human body, about people, all people?
Particular theory that's called progressive overload. In simple means is You know, if you don't challenge yourself, your body doesn't have to improve. If you don't force your body to adapt, it'll just plateau.
Right.
And you know, you have to keep either increasing the intensity, the duration, all the other elements of how you train to make your body do something that it hasn't done before. And then the way your body reacts to that is, damn, I better improve, because if he does that to me again, I've got to be in a better state to deal with it. And that's just the single most underlying element. If you do not put your body in a situation where it's being tested, it's being challenged, it's not going to improve. There's no reason for it to improve.
Yeah.
And that's behind every part of science of training.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I think our society's conditioned now with a lot of jobs to sit for hours.
Yeah.
And then we often don't eat because we're hungry. We often eat because we're either dehydrated, or we're bored, or we've created some type of emotional connection to something.
That's right.
How would you suggest for people out there to break that? How do you break those types of things in your view?
From the nutrition side, again, Emily is the expert, but she's taught me so much about the psychology of it as well. She's worked with a lot of people with eating disorders, and overeating is an eating disorder, just as much as anorexia is or bulimia is. It's just a poor relationship with food, often brought on by other psychological elements. You need to find out why you eat the way you do now.
Right.
Understand whether, as you said, it's emotional eating, whether it's frustrated eating, whether it's bored eating.
Or celebratory.
And the thing is, and some people reward themselves with food.
Yeah.
Just you need to understand that. Without that understanding, you can't really move forward. You might be able to go on a diet for a period of time, but it's never going to last, because you're basically fighting your mind and your emotions the entire time. Whereas you want to be embracing those elements to be able to help you make a lifelong change that puts you in the right position.
I'm sure you've worked with people all the time that have bad habits, and they have to sacrifice it to be able to get to the goal they're trying to get to. So give us an example of someone that maybe just couldn't help eating chocolate at 8 o'clock. Like, you tell me.
There are so many. Guy's thing was soft drinks.
Soft drinks.
Often just sitting in the studio and literally just having something there. Another friend of ours who was a music producer, he would work like an animal and then realise he hadn't eaten all day.
Yeah.
And it'd be like 3 o'clock in the morning, your studio's in the Cross, so his assistant would just go and get him a kebab.
Yeah.
And just eat crap because he just needed to eat.
Yeah.
And then you become accustomed to things. You become accustomed to salty foods, or sweet foods, or whatever it might be. Manu, he's a chef. He eats for a living, and that's no joke. When he's on My Kitchen Rules, he actually has to eat the food. It's not play for camera. He has to try it. He has to judge it. He has to understand it, and he also loves food. Like, it's his passion. It's why he became a chef, is a passion for food. So to try and get him to give up wine and cheese and things like that, actually, they're some of the biggest ones for most of our clients. Alcohol is probably one of the biggest ones.
Yes.
Because you work long hours. Roger Corsa, you're filming all day. You're out in Mudgee in the sun. It's dusty and hot. Just like anyone who works out on a farm or something, nothing better than a cold beer when you come in at the end of the day. But if you're doing that every single day, then that's a problem. Whereas now he's like, loves a beer. Like, we love to catch up and we'll have a drink, but it's something you can look forward to now, as opposed to it's a habit.
Yeah.
I'm the same. I love food. My wife and I, a big part of our relationship is we love to travel and try food and from all around the world, and I love great wine and things.
Yeah.
But if I'm being true to myself and looking after myself, I don't want to have a drink every night to help me sleep or something. I have a whole lot of issues with sleep. I don't want to use it as a crutch. I want to enjoy it. So a classic thing I do with people is, say someone drinks, and it's not that unusual, someone might drink half a bottle to a bottle of wine a night.
Right.
Without really thinking about it. A little bit with dinner, or maybe usually a little bit as soon as they get home.
Yes.
Reading the mail, reading the newspaper, whatever.
Watching a movie, watching TV.
Exactly right.
Yep.
Then some with dinner, and then they end up, oh, I'll finish that off before I go to bed. What I say to them is, okay, what do you spend on wine a week? And they'll tell me. I said, well, you obviously love good wine. I said, okay, go and spend 80% of that budget on one really great bottle of wine to have with your wife on Friday night.
Right. Cool.
And pick when you're going to have it. So for myself and for Emily, we have 2 date nights or two date meals a week. You know, one's a lunch, one's a dinner. So those 2 meals, eat what we want, drink what we want, but it's in advance. So it's not like, oh, you know, I'll have a drink this week. Oh, well, I may as well have it tonight. And then you end up going out for a function later in the week, or you know, your mate comes over and wants to sit down and have a deep and meaningful, and you're going to, you know, crack a beer or something. You want to plan it out so you know in advance, these are the times I'm going to have those things. They're going to be a treat now. Right. They're not something I'm going to take for granted and have every single day. Same thing with, you know, types of food. As you know, a Western society, we eat way too much carbohydrate. You know, it's very interesting. People often say to me about Asian cultures, you know, why is it, you know, part of my family heritage is Chinese.
You tell me.
Why is it that you go to these countries and they're not obese?
Yes.
And like, I must just be, you know, their genetics. So, no, it's not their genetics. How do we go to Chinese? You know, in Australia, big plate of fried rice, you know, dumplings, and then we have this
stuff.
Yep, and this tiny little bit of meat and vegetables. But if you go to most traditional Asian cultures, it's the meat, seafood, vegetables that are the majority of the meal, with a small amount of rice on the side or a small amount of noodles on the side or whatever it might be. We've just got it all backwards.
Yeah.
And so that's the same idea, is that if someone eats that way, and I was a carboholic, like massively, being a distance runner growing up, 2 to 3 bowls of pasta at dinner as a kid, then I'd heat up another bowl in the morning for breakfast. But I ended up hyperglycemic and almost diabetic, because I just ate so much carbohydrate and drank so much fruit juice and did all these things when I could burn it off. But my body fought back against it. M actually got me now where if I would probably have a bowl of pasta once every 2 to 3 months.
Yeah.
And I used to eat it like every single day.
Yeah.
But now my body doesn't want it. I have it and I feel like I'm about to fall asleep and I feel bloated and I feel, you know, I feel better eating the foods that are better for me. So it's all about teaching your mind and your body just basically new habits.
That's the thing. You push everybody physically, and there's a big part of that obviously with what you eat, nutrition wise, and that's where the mind gets challenged as well in that realm of, one, understanding your habits, understanding your relationship with food, which is big importance, and knowing once you recognize that, how the hell do you deal with it? Because some people want to fully just cut it off cold turkey, and that's really difficult to do.
And everyone's
right?
different, and you've got to be aware that some people so M's like, you know, she did this to me recently because I hadn't been taking care of myself. Every time I made a time to train during the day, I'd end up giving that time slot to a client who goes, oh look, you know, I need to be on screen early. Can I come and train earlier? And I give him my training spot. I went 18 months without training regularly, more than if I was lucky to get twice a week. And when I wasn't training, I wasn't eating properly and all these sorts of things. So she turned around and said, okay, I've signed us up for a race. I'm like, damn, I need to get back to race weight. I need to get fit again.
Good.
She is literally, and she's starting right now, whereas I'm starting tomorrow. And I'll start the very next day, but I have to psychologically draw a line in the sand. She'll literally, that very minute, she's on. Some people, they actually need 2 steps. They need training first. Don't even talk to them about the nutrition yet. So Em will literally not even talk about the nutrition program at all until they've done a whole week of training, got through that. We've shown them how mentally and emotionally strong they are, then take on the food. Because the food's a hard one, because when they're here, they're with us.
Yeah.
When they're at home, they're not having us right there beside them. Or when they're out to dinner, to be in a nice restaurant or be at a function, everyone else is drinking champagne, and then to ask for mineral water, that's discipline. But they've got to have that self-discipline. Whereas we can give them instilled discipline in this room.
Yes.
Self-discipline on their own, that's the hard part.
Yeah, I want to go a bit deeper, man. What makes us truly valuable, you know? And a lot of this comes down to partly, part of our function as humans, we evolved to work, and it's important to love your work because you work a third of your life. It's very important. And but that's just one part of you. It's one part of your value, because if I was unable to do what I do for work tomorrow, would I still be me? Would you still be you? I would be in big part. What's your philosophy on value, on how you see people? Because you see, like that guy you saw back in the military, and people wrote him off. You saw something different. I want to know, what is that operating system? Do you still have that operating system? Obviously you do. You see more.
I mean, and it's funny. So, you know, a lot of people kind of know us for the work we do with celebrities and things like that, and our personal coaching. What most people probably don't know is that the reason I still get up at 4 o'clock every day is I go out and train, you know, sort of 40 to 80 everyday Aussies down on the beach or in the park doing boot camp every single morning. And I will do that till literally the day they have to wheel me onto the beach in a wheelchair. And a lot of people say, why do you still do that? Like, you don't need to do that. You know, you've built a successful company. You know, you're doing all this sort of work as well, the personal coaching work. But I actually just love to understand why people are there, what they're trying to achieve, not just their motivation, but their story, as you said, and their true reason why.
Yes.
You know, a classic one for me that I love, and I've seen it with pretty much actually every high-profile male celebrity that we train. Is a big part of their motivation is their children. You know, men in Western culture, particularly in Australia, are having their first child later in life than they used to, and still having kids, you know, into their 50s, 60s. You know, Emily's dad in his 70s. You know, you've got these guys realising that when we were young, and our dad might come out and kick the football with us when we're like 15 and 16.
Yeah, true.
By the time their kids are 15 and 16, these guys are well into their 60s.
Yeah,
now, they may not be athletes at that age, but they want to be able to be a positive reflection on their kids by able to go out there and spend physical time with them, particularly now that so few of our kids actually do it on their own. Like, to be able to have any of our guys, you know, for Larry, you know, in his mid-50s now, to say to his son Jai, let's go for a surf. You know, just at the drop of a hat. And to see that relationship, to see the time they spend together, and the respect that his son has for him, for the fact that he takes care of himself and what he's achieved, that's the really important elements that I think it's not about how you look. You know, that might be a driving force to some extent, particularly if it's a career-based element.
Yes.
But ultimately, it's how you can live your life better, whatever your life is. If you want to be, you know, better on stage as a singer, that's great. If you run a multinational company, like, you know, one of our guys does, or a number of our guys do, and you want to do that to the best of your ability, you know, it might mean you have to be able to wake up at 3 a.m. and be able to just actually be coherent, and then be able to go to work and run the day, and then still have time to go home to your family and be a great dad. Then that's what's important. Whatever your life is, whatever you want to be doing with your life, our goal is just to help you do that better. You know, from the physical side, obviously, hopefully from a mental and emotional side too. But if we can physically prepare you just to live the life you want better, then we've done our job. That's it.
How do we get through tough times? How have you got
I
through
ultimately
tough times?
see. I mean, you know, whether it's from, you know, PTSD, you know, many years ago now, I broke my neck, which has left me with headaches 24 hours a day for the last coming on to 19 years.
Wow.
When I met Em, 3 hours was a good night's sleep. 3 days was often that I wouldn't sleep. So what got me through those times were someone I cared about and cared about me, being Emily, but also friends I had, family, my sister and my parents, and my sister very much now as well. It's the people around you. You've got to, Australian men, I've spoken about this previously at different talks. The biggest problem for Australian men, women as well to some extent, is that we always have the perception that someone's got it worse than us. In the military, I see it all the time. A guy comes back with PTSD, my mate's got it worse, he didn't come back with his leg. Mate who lost his leg comes back, my other mate's got it worse, he didn't come back at all. It's this Aussie male mentality of, well, I've got nothing to bitch and moan about. Why would I express my feelings or tell people about my problems when this bloke's got it worse than me?
Yeah.
That's bullshit.
Yes, it is.
Everything that concerns us, worries us, upsets us, matters. No more or less than anybody else.
That's really good.
And it doesn't. You can't even compare. I have plenty of mates who've lost legs. They've said to me, or limbs, have said to me that my situation's worse because I'll never get rid of this headache, and it's there all the time. Whereas they've now gone to become successful athletes or returned to the military and kind of almost excelled in life. Paul Gelder, who you have to meet, lost an arm and a leg in a shark attack, and has gone on to educate the world that we should be respecting sharks. So people you would look at them and feel sorry for them. It's not about that. It's not about pity. It's about support.
Yeah.
If you see someone who might be struggling, help them out. If you're the one struggling, don't ever feel that your problems aren't worth talking about.
That is so true. What it does a lot of damage because that means that it lessens all the experiences or the pain that you're going through. It's like, it doesn't give credit to that. It doesn't actually shed light on that. Therefore, they might think, because you look at other people and they may be worse than you should feel better.
Yeah.
So how does that work? It's
crazy, and we're all the same. If you deal with anybody who suffers from depression, it's one of the most common traits is that I don't have the right to be depressed.
Yep.
I've got an amazing family, I've got a great career, I don't have the stress of being unemployed but it's not, it's chemical.
Yes.
Or it can be obviously emotional based on experience.
Yeah. Yes.
But it's not a choice. It's not even what's happening around you. It's not your life that's the problem. But we all have this idea, and particularly those people who are struggling with depression, I have no right to be upset. Why am I sad? Yeah. But the thing is, it's not a choice. It's something that you need to see a professional about.
Yes.
You need to talk to people who care about it, but never underestimate the benefit of speaking to a professional.
Yeah, I 100% agree. We'll endorse that because one of our good friends is the top positive psychologist in this nation, and she's an ambassador for the Starlight Foundation. We just caught up recently, and she just echoes in my mind what she says is that it's important as humans to experience the full range of human emotions. And there's a lie out there, Chief, where we're sold through marketing and through just social media that emphasizes it too, that you got to be happy all the time.
Yeah.
And if you're happy all the time, you should be locked up.
Seriously, there's something wrong.
All the time, you should be like, it's like the Joker. You punch him in the face, he laughs.
It's funny. It's literally exactly what I was thinking. It's so true that you can't live your life in one mind space. And it's not that being sad or angry is negative.
Yeah.
You need to have those feelings. If you don't, again, you're probably a sociopath.
Yes.
If you don't get angry or upset or jealous or you don't feel pain for other people, then there is a problem. That doesn't mean that people always show those emotions, and people often will judge someone based on the fact such and such died. He stood up at the funeral, spoke eloquently, didn't cry. That doesn't mean he's not dealing with it his own way.
Yeah.
But if you are not feeling all of those emotions at some point, then you need to be worried about yourself.
Absolutely.
You need to start thinking that either possibly you're over-medicated, because that's the only time I've met sociopaths before. Unless you're a sociopath, the only other time you would not be able to feel those emotions is if you're over-medicated.
Yeah.
And that's not a good place to be either.
Well, we should have a round 2 with this. There's so much we could dive into. We'll catch up again soon. But bro, thanks so much for your time.
Awesome, mate.
Appreciate it, man.
Cheers.